South Korea and the United States will hold a state summit next month, marking the 70th anniversary of their security alliance. Extended deterrence against North Korea is said to be top of the agenda. A leadership reset is on the cards for the ruling People Power Party as it seeks a majority in next year's general election. In the U.S., the possibility of a big step increases as Federal Reserve Chair warns of a higher-than-expected hike to fight stubborn inflation. Good afternoon. We start with a big announcement coming out of Seoul and Washington overnight. The leaders of the two countries will hold a summit next month in Washington, D.C., marking 70 years of their security alliance. Their extended deterrence against North Korea will be among the top agendas. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
President Yoon is set to hold back-to-back summits with the leaders of the United States and Japan in the coming weeks, accelerating efforts to jointly address security threats, including North Korea, and economic challenges. Seoul's top office said on Wednesday that Yoon will visit Washington, D.C. next month, marking the first South Korean state visit to the U.S. since 2011. With a state dinner slated for April 26th, Presidents Yoon and Joe Biden will hold talks under the theme of Alliance in Action. During his visit to D.C. this week, National Security Advisor Kim Sung-han said the focus would be on protecting peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula, which he called the basis of the 70-year alliance. Kim said the leaders would seek ways to qualitatively strengthen the allies' capability to offset North Korea's nuclear weapons, noting that the U.S. has reasserted its commitment to extended deterrence, with joint military exercises and the deployment of various U.S. strategic assets as measures to build trust. On the trade front, Kim added that Seoul will also seek measures to minimize damage to South Korean firms hit by Washington's policies that support domestic production of key industrial products, such as semiconductors. Other agendas for the two leaders are cooperation on advanced technologies, economic security, and people-to-people exchanges, taking the alliance further beyond the realm of military ties. In this regard, the two leaders are expected to discuss furthering their cooperation with Japan, following recent efforts by Seoul and Tokyo to overcome their long-standing disputes. South Korea's plan to compensate Japan's wartime forced labor victims through voluntary donations from the private sector has been challenged domestically, but has drawn a positive response from the US and Japan. According to Japanese media, Tokyo's ruling party chief Natsuo Yamaguchi said on Tuesday that Seoul-Tokyo relations have reached an important turning point, with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida expressing willingness to meet President Yoon even later next week.
Observers will closely watch whether Kishida will invite South Korea to the G7 meeting in May. This would set the scene for a trilateral summit of leaders, the third to be held during President Yoon's term. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
The South Korean military will launch a drone operation command in the coming months to counter increasing threats of drone attacks and intrusions from the north. According to Joint Chiefs of Staff on Wednesday, the military is in preparations to launch the new Drone Operations Command as early as July by analyzing and taking tips from its allies to shorten the time. For instance, they visited Turkey's drone brigade recently to share insights in operations and strategy. Turkey's brigade is equipped with the Bayraktar TB2, an unmanned combat aerial drone that's been used by Ukraine against Russian forces. The U.S. is concerned that a number of countries are attempting to meddle in its politics through cyber operations, namely North Korea, China, Russia, and Iran. Testifying before Senate Armed Services Committee on Tuesday, U.S. Cyber Command Director General Paul Nakasone said those countries are enhancing their cyber capabilities in order to meddle in U.S. elections. He added it is much more than just attempting to hack into election systems, with influence operations and disinformation campaigns more prevalent. The commander particularly mentioned China becoming a very capable force and formidable foe in cyberspace. South Korea's ruling People Power Party will elect a new full-time leadership today. Following the party's two consecutive victories in the presidential and local elections, the new leadership will focus on next year's general election, hoping to gain a much-needed majority in parliament to back the Yoon Suk-yeol administration. Our political correspondent Lee Si-hoo reports.
The day of the ruling Conservative People Power Party's national convention has finally come. The bloc, currently run by an emergency steering committee headed by Jung Jin-seok, is announcing its new leadership on Wednesday in the city of Goyang in Gyeonggi-do province. This is after 4 days of online and phone voting by party members, which began on March 4th. Whereas before, the public was able to vote too, this time the PPP revised the rule so that only the registered party members are eligible. Of some 837,000 eligible voters, over 55%, or some 461,000 people, have voted. The voting rate of party members is the highest ever recorded in a PPP national convention. 4 candidates are running for the single position of party chair, and 8 are running for 4 available seats on the party's Supreme Council. 4 more candidates are competing for a seat available for a young member of the Supreme Council designated for those under 45. The members of the Supreme Councils will be announced on Wednesday, but if none of the party chair candidates win a majority, a runoff will be held between the top 2 candidates. In that case, the winner will be announced Sunday following a televised debate and 2 more days of voting. Wednesday's event is the 3rd national convention in the PPP's history. It comes in a bid to find new leadership after Lee Jun-seok, the former PPP chair, was suspended from party membership after sexual bribery allegations last July. All eyes are now on how the new leadership, once it has been selected, will prepare for the general election scheduled to take place in April 2024. The party currently holds 115 seats in parliament compared to the main opposition Democratic Party's 169 seats. Meanwhile, the theme for Wednesday's convention, according to the PPP, is unity and celebration. President Yoon Suk-yeol is expected to join the event. Lee Si-hoo, Arirang News.
In the U.S., the possibility of a big step increases. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has warned of a higher than expected hike to fight stubborn inflation. Our Lee Seung-jae has the details.
Giving his semi-annual testimony before the Senate Banking Committee on Tuesday, U.S. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell said the U.S. Central Bank will likely need to increase interest rates higher than initially anticipated, and maybe even at a faster pace.
As I mentioned, the latest economic data have come in stronger than expected, which suggests that the ultimate level of interest rates is likely to be higher than previously anticipated. If the totality of the data were to indicate that faster tightening is warranted, we'd be prepared to increase the pace of rate hikes.
In response, Powell was grilled by Republican Senator John Neely Kennedy, who accused the U.S. Fed of trying to increase unemployment figures by aggressively raising rates. However, according to the U.S. Central Bank chief, the recent unexpected economic data may trigger further inflation and slow progress towards the Fed's target of 2% inflation. That means the central bank would have to be more aggressive with rate hikes. Powell also hinted at rate hikes being larger than the most recent 25 basis point increase. Experts say Powell is hinting at a big step or 50 basis point rate hike at the next FOMC meeting slated for March 21st to the 22nd. With the U.S. Central Bank's rates in the 4.50% to 4.75% range, a big step would move them into the 5% territory and even further raise year-end expectations for the benchmark interest rate. One of the world's leading financial derivative exchanges, CME Group, predicts year-end interest rates to stand in the 5.5% to 5.75% range. Powell's latest remarks led to a sharp fall in the U.S. stock markets on Tuesday, while Treasury yields jumped. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Economic turbulence in South Korea persists as exports continue to decline while domestic demand remains sluggish. According to the Korea Development Institute on Wednesday, the nation's economic slowdown continues as shrinking exports of semiconductors put a damper on manufacturing sector. Retail sales and growth in the service sector also remain sluggish, with the Consumer Sentiment Index at 90.2 points last month, down 0.5 points from the previous month. The institute noted that while the Economic Sentiment Index shows signs of recovery following China's reopening, the country's exports to China are experiencing a steeper decline. South Korean conglomerates saw their profits fall last year despite their sales going up. According to data by Federation of Korean Industries, compared to the previous year, sales increased by 20.9% in 2022, whereas operating profits decreased by 2.5%. This was based on performance reports of 80 of the top 100 domestic conglomerates, excluding financial and public firms. Experts highlighted that the decline in operating profit was particularly large in the manufacturing sector due to higher prices of raw materials. Amid the economic slowdown and aging population causing an employment imbalance in South Korea, the government will step in to address labor shortages in 6 key sectors like manufacturing and logistics. Our Moon Hae-ryun has the details.
In an emergency conference headed by Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho on Wednesday, labor shortages across several industries were highlighted. The third quarter of 2022 saw a record 185,000 openings in the labor market, a figure which has continued to show a sharp increase since 2020. The labor shortage had been attributed to temporary factors such as COVID-19, creating more contact-free jobs and the impact of restrictions on the foreign labor force. But structural issues such as poor working environments and pay are also contributing factors. With the economic slowdown, the government is focusing its attention on filling these empty spots, as opposed to creating new job opportunities. The manufacturing sector was reported to have the largest number of shortages. In 2022, it had a total of 58,000 unfilled spots, or around 28.7% of its total labor force. The shipbuilding industry was the most affected area, prompting the government to announce a specifically tailored support package during the meeting. Despite South Korea regaining its top spot for world shipbuilding orders in February this year, the low pay and high-risk environment makes the job unappealing for young workers. Only 66% of the total shipbuilding labor force was filled in the second half of 2022. On top of high figures for employees quitting their jobs. The government support package will aim to address 4 key areas in the shipbuilding industry: pay, welfare, training and safety, as well as providing financial support for companies that need to increase their workforce. Notably, it will be expanding financial support for the employees of subcontractors to improve welfare and safety by raising the Labor Welfare Fund budget and investing in smart safety equipment.
It is expected that subcontractors who have endured a long recession will be properly compensated so they can increase wages.
Other than the manufacturing sector, the government also plans to provide support for transportation and logistics, health and welfare, dining, agriculture, and overseas construction industries. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
The Korea Tourism Organization has revealed its campaign logo for the Visit Korea Year program for 2023 and 2024. The new logo incorporates a traditional Korean head, known as Gov't, into the design along with words that have patterns based on Hanbok Korean traditional attire. Both traditional items have been widely used by K-pop idols in music videos or their daily fashion, and became more globally known because of the Netflix show Kingdom. The Korea Tourism Organization and the Visit Korea Committee are working together on a variety of programs to welcome foreign tourists back to South Korea after the pandemic. Exciting news for baseball fans out there. The 2023 World Baseball Classic is making a comeback today after a 6-year hiatus. Team Korea is in Tokyo for its first match against Australia this Thursday. Our Choi Soo-young has more.
Team Korea is all set for the World Baseball Classic. They had 2 practice games against Japanese pro baseball teams Oryx Buffaloes and Hanshin Tigers on Monday and Tuesday. Despite losing 2-4 against Oryx, they beat Hanshin 7-4, giving Team Korea a confidence boost ahead of their opening WBC game. The 2023 World Baseball Classic features 20 teams divided into 4 pools of 5. Team Korea is in Pool B, which is based in Tokyo. They will face Australia, Japan, Czech Republic and China. The Korea Baseball Organization and head coach Lee Gang-chul announced their roster on January 4th. Team Korea includes 15 pitchers, 2 catchers, 8 infielders and 5 outfielders. According to KBO officials, it boasts Korea's strongest WBC lineup ever, with several former and current major leaguers. The 2 major leaguers, St. Louis Cardinals infielder Tommy Hyun-soo Edman and San Diego Padres infielder Kim Ha-sung, are expected to bring synergy to the team. U.S. magazine Baseball America last Tuesday named 3 Korean players among its top 10 prospects for the tournament. Last season's KBO MVP Lee Jong-hoo was 4th on the list, along with first baseman Kang Baek-ho and second baseman Kim Hae-sung. Team Korea has its first match against Australia at Tokyo Dome on Thursday at midday Korea time. And on Friday, Team Korea takes on local rival Japan at 7 p.m. Head coach Lee says his aim for now is to reach the semi-finals, which will be played in Miami.
Many people say Team Korea is in a crisis, but I will use this as an opportunity to play as many games as possible with the team roster filled with young players and veterans.
Only the top 2 teams in each pool advance to the quarterfinals. The opening match will be held in Taichung Stadium in Taiwan between Cuba and Netherlands on Wednesday. Team Korea will be hoping to do better than 2013 and 2017 WBC tournaments when they failed to reach the quarterfinals. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Leading skaters from around the world will be competing at full speed in Seoul starting this Friday. This is South Korea for the first time in 7 years hosts the ISU World Short Track Speed Skating Championships. Song Yoo-jin has more.
The world's best skaters return to Korea after 7 years. This year's International Skating Union's World Short Track Speed Skating Championships, the most prestigious event after the Olympics, kicks off on Friday in Seoul. Around 310 skaters from 34 countries will take part in the 3-day competition. That includes South Korea, a short track powerhouse. 15 skaters, 7 women and 8 men make up Team Korea this time. They'll be spearheaded by men's team ace Park Ji-won and last year's overall women's champion Choi Min-jung. Park is looking to continue his fine form. The 26-year-old became the inaugural champion of the ISU Crystal Globe Trophy, which honors the overall champion of the World Cup season. He's been unbeatable this season, earning multiple medals in all 6 World Cups.
My first World Championships was in 2016, also in Seoul when I was a member of the relay team. This is my first time competing for an individual title at the World Championships. I'll devote myself to every race just like I did at the World Cup.
As for Choi, the 3-time Olympic champion, she'll be looking to make a glorious comeback to the podium after her lower-than-expected World Cup performance this season. She clinched only 1 individual title, winning the 1500 meters at Dresden in February.
It's an honor to skate at home in front of Korean fans. My goal is to perform well with my teammates rather than focusing on my individual performance.
Another athlete in the spotlight is 18-year-old Kim Gi-lee. She made her senior debut this season but has picked up 2 World Cup golds already. Kim currently sits first in the women's 1500-meter world standings.
This is my first World Championships. I'll try my best so that I leave without any regrets.
With this promising squad, Team Korea is ready to hunt for some medals. South Korea topped the medal table last year in Montreal with 5 golds, 3 silver, and 1 bronze.
Rather than thinking about the number of medals, we hope our athletes get the outcome they want. But the more the merrier.
The race for gold begins on Friday at the Mokdong Ice Rink in western Seoul. 송유진, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. News coming from Mexico on the 4 Americans kidnapped in the northeast of the country last Friday. According to U.S. and Mexican officials on Tuesday local time, 2 of those kidnapped were found dead, while the other 2 have been returned safely to the U.S. They were reportedly found in a wooden house in the Mexican city of Matamoros. At least 1 person has been detained in connection to the incident on March 3rd, where the victims were taken hostage in what's believed to be a case of mistaken identity. Relatives of the victims say they had traveled there to have cosmetic procedures done as a cheaper alternative to those offered in the U.S. Video footage of the kidnapping showed the Americans being taken from their white minivan and loaded into a pickup truck by heavily armed men. The kidnapping incident also saw a Mexican woman killed, who is believed to have been a bystander. Moving over to Bangladesh now, as rescue operations are underway following an explosion that tore through a multi-story commercial building in the capital, Dhaka, on Tuesday local time. According to officials, the blast killed at least 18 people, and the death toll is expected to rise. Over 140 have been injured. Meanwhile, the cause of the blast is still being investigated, although some reports have blamed accumulated gas. The building was located in the city's crowded Siddiq Bazaar, with the explosion also damaging nearby structures and vehicles. The incident comes just days after 2 separate explosions killed 10 people. Bangladesh has become notorious for such occurrences in recent years, with watchers pointing to corruption and failure to enforce regulations as the cause. Meanwhile, in Europe, tickets for this year's Eurovision Song Contest Grand Final were in demand, selling out in just over 30 minutes. 6,000 lucky audience members took just 36 minutes to snap up tickets for the final on May 13th. The 67th edition of the competition also saw 48,000 tickets for the 6 semi-final dress rehearsals, and 2 semi-finals sell out in around 90 minutes. Ukraine was meant to host this year's competition, but due to the war, the Eurovision will instead be hosted in Liverpool. The UK government has promised that 3,000 tickets will be set aside for Ukrainians living in the UK. And finally, the Holy Festival of Colors comes to a close on Wednesday after 3 days of celebrations by Hindus around the world. The event celebrates the arrival of spring and sees revelers dance through streets and throw colored dye at each other. This year has seen celebrations across India, Nepal, Pakistan and other parts of the world return in full swing, following 2 years of limited festivities due to COVID-19. Much like Diwali, the centuries-old holy festival also has its roots in Indian mythology and signifies the triumph of good over evil. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Another exceptionally warm March day with daily highs reaching 10 degrees higher than seasonal norms. And notice how warm it is in Gyeongju, hovering in the mid-20s this afternoon. Then we have much awaited rain in the forecast starting from central parts of the country late this afternoon. Well, precipitation will be 5 to 10 millimeters, which will not be enough to relieve the dryness in the air. But the dry advisory in the capital area has been lifted, but east of Gangwon remains on high alert against wildfire, along with a strong wind advisory in place. Those in southern provinces are having end-of-April-like temperatures under sunnier skies. But Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do province will have dusty air all day. It looks like being dustier tomorrow. Unseasonably warm temperatures will last through Saturday. Then much-awaited nationwide rain on Sunday will bring much chillier air to the country next week. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of the day.